Have you ever heard of the term New Year's resolutions? Well, here in Scotland, where I live, when it comes towards the end of the year, people generally start writing, it's kind of like shopping lists for the changes that they want to see happen in their lives the following year. So these New Year's resolutions will sometimes look like people saying, I want to lose weight, I want to get fit, I want to get a new job, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to cut this out of my life, I'm going to stop doing that, things like this. And again, commonly in Scotland, New Year's resolutions, people start a new year with the best of intentions until it gets to maybe 2 or 3 weeks into January. Then people lose the motivation, they find themselves back in the perpetual cycle of the rat race, and then that's New Year's resolutions all done and dusted until the following year. Having a desire to change doesn't always necessarily bring about change, but I'm sure you're already more than aware of this. So we live in this constant state of comparison. We are at where we're at in life all of the time, right? It might sound overly simplistic, but we all have a current set of conditions. Our current conditions are just simply how our life, how our work, our social circumstances are today, how our finances are, how we feel, so on and so forth. So all of these things, especially how we feel, is going to be determined by our life's experiences. If we have a strong set of robust, healthy, mature, wise relationships in our life, then of course our lives are going to be okay. But if we don't, then we might be struggling just a little bit. So our current conditions and the quality of our life today will always be based on these factors. Our life's experience, how it is that we define ourselves, our day-to-day relationships, our beliefs, our worldviews, how fulfilled we are. I mean, consider this. So I want to tell you a quick story, if I may. At the side of the lake one day, there was a crow. He was sitting there picking up some grubs. And this tarantula kind of walked along the ground, came up to him and said, Mr. Crow, listen, I can see that you obviously have wings, and I'm desperately trying to get myself across the other side of the lake. Would you be willing to let me jump on your back and give me a flight over? I want to see my wife and kids, you see. And the crow was obviously a little bit hesitant because he knows that tarantulas have a tendency of biting crows. And he said, "Whoa there, just stop in your tracks, Mr. Tarantula. Listen, I'm fully aware that tarantulas have a tendency of biting crows, and I value my life, I value my current conditions. I want to get back and see my wife and kids tonight, so not on your Nelly." The tarantula started to then reason with him, well listen, there's absolutely no way on this earth I would even consider biting if I'm on your back flying across this lake, because then we're both going to be bound to fall to our doom as we kind of drown if I was to do that. So the crow started to see a little bit of reason from Mr. Tarantula's perspective, so he ended up agreeing. He lowered his wing, the tarantula kind of climbed up his wing onto the crow's back, and they just took off and started flying across the lake. Now they were around about halfway across, and the crow just literally felt these fangs plunge in the back of his neck, and Mr. Tarantula had just literally bitten him and injected him with his poisonous venom, and he could feel it pulsating through his veins. He knew that he was doomed to die, and as his body started seizing up, he was literally plunging to the lake with a tarantula on his back, and he said, "Mr. Tarantula, why on earth would you do this to us? Now we are both facing certain and imminent death." And the tarantula responded by saying, "Ha ha ha, it's because I'm a tarantula." And that's what tarantulas do. We bite crows. All right, now why do I tell you this story? I don't tell you this story to entertain you, but to highlight a really interesting idea. And this is that how we define ourselves will 9 times out of 10 determine how we act and behave, right? So as we're really focusing on mental health and emotional well-being, some people will say, "I am anxious. I'm an anxious person. That's who I am. That's what I have. The doctor told me. The mental health expert told me. I've been diagnosed. I have a condition. It's who I am. It's how I must behave." And what I'm saying here is that the labels that we use to define ourselves today will influence how we act and behave and experience life. All right, this is some really, really big stuff. All right, so how we define ourselves will influence the quality of our day-to-day relationships, the kind of people who actually want to spend time with us, the kind of people who actually even take us seriously. Our beliefs and worldviews can become enhanced over time. Right? It's kind of like sometimes we can go through life in this ongoing state of self-fulfilling prophecy. I am anxious. No one likes me. I'm not a good person. I'm a bad person. And some people go through life living in such a defeatist way, like sometimes even with a victim mindset. And this has this adverse impact on the quality of the relationships. So people don't actually want to get too close to them. Then the beliefs and the worldviews that they have end up actually enhanced. Say, see? I told you I was not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not that enough, and so on and so forth, and that determines how fulfilled they are. So, our current conditions and the health of our current conditions in life will determine our mental and emotional well-being, our mental health, our state, if you like, right? So I'll put this term here, self-esteem. It's going to be a term that you've most likely heard of, right? Do you know what self-esteem is? Our self-esteem is just simply the way in which we feel about ourselves on a day-to-day basis, how we feel about ourselves. I want to help you understand how it is that we can begin to raise our self-esteem levels imminently, because self-esteem plays a huge role in determining our mental health and emotional well-being. Right, so as I've mentioned, we live in this ongoing, perpetual state of comparison, right? And sometimes some people will just, ongoingly compare themselves to others. Sometimes we'll view other people as being greater than us, and what we do is unknowingly put ourselves down. Sometimes we'll look at other people and see ourselves as being greater than, or better than, or stronger than them. And what we end up doing as we look down on people, which is all just perception, by the way, we end up kind of putting ourselves up on a pedestal of pride and arrogance. And again, it's not a particularly strong, robust, mature set of foundations that we want to build and base our life upon. So what's the alternative here? Well, I just want you to consider this for a second. We're going to shelf this and have a look instead at what lives on the other side of the fence, because the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, isn't it? Have you ever heard a person say, when I get there, life will be better, so much greater when I get there. When I get there, I will feel better about myself. When I get there, life will be more rewarding. When I get there, life will be significantly greater than how it is today in my current conditions. What we're talking about here is the ideal set of conditions that we have for our life. All right, so we have the current conditions, which is kind of like the real, the actual conditions that we are experiencing and walking in today. And then we have the ideal. So we've got the real and we have the ideal. The ideal conditions are simply the vision or the idea or the notion or the set of expectations that we have about what the future will be like for us, framed in a positive sense, all right? So this can incorporate the vision that we have. It might be the case we want to be happily married with 2.4 children, perhaps sitting in a retirement home with our spouse, our husband, our wife, sitting there in a rocking chair with grandchildren on our knees. Or it might be the case that we have a vision to pioneer and build a huge international business, or launch some sort of world movement, or launch a charity or something like this. It doesn't really matter, but our vision and goals are always going to be accomplishments significantly greater than what we've accomplished up until now today, all right? Just, it's the nature of the beast. So we consider what it is that we can accomplish, what we might want to accomplish at some point in the future, how we can grow and improve, who it is that we can become in character and virtue, all right? Some people have this set of ideal conditions, at some point in the future, I hope that I can just be happy. I want to be happy at some point in the future. That's not enough, all right? Happiness is not a strong motivational force in our life. Why? Because if we're, working towards just an emotional sensation at some point in the future, then we're actually not working towards anything greater than a feeling, all right? So we consider who it is that we can become in character, in virtue. Can I grow? Could I become a more virtuous person? Could I become a stronger person, a more responsible person, a wiser person, a more mature person? Alternatively, we're talking about, can I just be a happier person? All right. If we're a happier person, we might find that lovely. It might be nice for us. But when we become more virtuous, more mature, more responsible, more decisive, more consistent, stronger, this is when other people start to find more value in us, which then enhances the quality of our day-to-day relationships, how fulfilled we are, and so on and so forth. So everything all ties in here. There's no getting away from any of this. And if we commit to pursuing and actually doing something about the ideal conditions that we hope for at some point in the future, we might even start to consider the legacy we might leave behind. Now, this will seem like a big idea for some people, but right now, remember, it's just concept, all right? It's just an ideal, an idea. So the idea is this, that if we do not have a meaningful vision or some sort of purpose is greater than just an emotional sensation to work towards, we're going to be struggling to find the motivation to do anything significant with our lives, all right? And this will negatively impact our mental health and our emotional well-being. And this is why some people spend the entirety of their lives going round and round in circles, desperately just wanting to feel happy because they're sad about the conditions of their life. So, I want you to understand this now. And this is where this idea of kind of comparison state kicks into play. There is always going to be a gap, right? This is just the belly of the beast. There's always going to be a gap between our current conditions and our ideal conditions. So from your perspective right now, the size or the scale or the width or the breadth of the gap between where you're at and where you see yourself as wanting to be will determine the amount of crisis and tension and stress that you experience in life today. All right? If you feel like every single day you are moving forward and progressing and getting closer to where you want to be, you're going to experience fulfillment, joy, rewards, sometimes overwhelm. And these things are fine. But if you feel that you are not progressing or moving forward because you haven't actually taken any time to define what your ideal future conditions are going to be or what you want them to be, then how are you ever going to know if you're making progress or not? Now, this is where conventional mental health teachings fail miserably. Many mental health teachings say focus on your self-esteem. That's ridiculous. It's a crazy notion. Focus on your self-esteem is about you focusing on how you feel. Instead, I want to propose that instead of focusing on how you feel, focus on the action steps that you can take today so that you begin to feel like you're actually progressing in life. Because if you start taking those action steps consistently on a day-to-day basis, you can begin to experience fulfillment on a day-to-day basis. And you might not believe me just yet. You're going to have to put this into practice. You're going to have to test me in this. But over time, I know that you will come to discover for yourself that fulfillment is significantly more meaningful and rewarding than happiness. All right, so what happens if we do just want to devote the rest of our lives towards feeling happy? Well, let's have a look at this, all right? We're only ever going to want to feel happy about our current conditions, all right? And this is it. We're only ever sad or unhappy in life when our current conditions are less than ideal. So what this means, what some people do, is they end up trying to cut corners. And by this, I mean they will avoid taking responsibility for driving their lives in the direction that they actually need to, that would enable them to feel and experience fulfillment. They'll sometimes drink to excess, take drugs, gamble, become addicted to certain things. Some men, some women will commit to working ridiculous hours around the clock, 12, 14, 16-hour days, have become workaholics, success addicts, whatever, all right? And they end up going round and round and round in circles, where most days they might get that experience of happiness, they might get that short-lived experience of elation. It's kind of like the adrenaline junkies as well, always looking for that next high. Right? Interestingly enough, if you've ever had a conversation with a person who would define themselves as an alcoholic, I've worked with a number of men and women who define themselves as alcoholics over the years, or drug addicts. It's not the drink or the chemicals that they're actually addicted to. It's the emotional sensations that alcohol and drugs induce. Sometimes a state of inner calm. Inner calm is just at the opposite end of the spectrum from inner chaos or tension or crisis. And I'm hoping that you're starting to now put together a few pieces of this jigsaw puzzle, because I've already suggested that the size of the gap between our current conditions and our ideal conditions will determine the amount of crisis and tension in our life. So it's kind of like some people end up working against themselves. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not that society generally sets us up for success in this, because much of society promotes buy this product, take this medicine, go and speak to this therapist, or go and listen to this guru, or buy that book, and your life's just going to work out. It's going to make you feel better. There's people out there who claim to be able to heal you and fix you and cure you and make all your woes disappear. But the truth of the matter is that until we as a people take full responsibility for taking the action steps that we need to take to get away from our current conditions and start progressing towards our ideal conditions, we're never going to experience fulfillment, contentment, peace, or reward in the context of our day-to-day lives.